Now, transnational company to be actually to have the characteristics that we today associate with multinational company, they need to have also, these are the second conditions I was saying, that is the ability to manage. And the fact that nowadays we do have companies in which this condition is satisfied, in which you don't only have equity control, but you have also the ability to manage, this was favored by two sets of innovation. On one hand, that were like taking place during the 20th century. First, technological innovation in personal communication. First the telegraph, then the phone, then the internet, and then the huge diffusion of transportations across the globe. Think about airline companies and things like that, which made, of course, the movement of people around different continents much easier over time. Secondly, an important set of organizational innovation, which favored improvements, which were favored also by improvement in communication. Now, for the technological innovation, I think you all have in mind what I mean. For organizational innovation, probably not, so I will spend a little bit more time on this second point. What do I mean by organizational innovation? Now, organizational innovation basically means changes in the way in which firms are organized. Okay, usually, probably there are some of you who took the course of microeconomics with me. In microeconomics, for instance, we tend to we don't give much attention about how a company is organized, because we simplify the way in which we study production by the mean of a production function, in which we say production depends on two inputs, capital and labor. They are combined, and that's it. Okay. As I usually tell my students during my macroeconomic course, this is a very strong simplification, and companies do not work like that. Okay, they are not just production function. Companies and managers of companies spend a lot of time and make a lot of investments in order to understand how to actually organize the activity of the company, and they have several different options. Okay, this implies, for instance, and also these different options that they have depends on the technological environment in which they operate and on the institutional environment in which they operate. This is proved by the fact that if we read the literature on business history, if you want, you clearly see that over time, business history is a discipline. It's a discipline that basically studies how the organization of business change over time. Chandler is one of the main authors in this literature, Alfred Chandler. And if you read this literature, you clearly see that over time, the way in which firms are organized has changed a lot. Okay, for instance, if we go back at the time when Marshall was writing, at that time, companies or firms were mainly operating as a single function, were mainly active in a single industry, and were tightly controlled by one of few men. So the best example of the Marshallian firm is the firm where there is one entrepreneur who is producing one type of shoes, all black. I'm producing them using one plant and hiring 5, 6, or 10 people that work in the plant. Okay, all the time they produce shoes of one single typology. They are all black. They are all made by leather, and they are all the same. Okay, so just one function. I'm active in one industry, and I'm the single owner. Okay, so this is the typical example of the Marshallian firm, and it is also the typical example of the firm that we consider when we simplify the analysis in microeconomics and we study production by the means of a production function. These companies nowadays are the minority. Okay. Nowadays, companies are much more complex. They are not single function. So you have companies producing, think about Lenovo, who is a Chinese company producing PC, but is also producing a mobile phone, and is also producing other type of technological equipments. Okay, so they produce several different things. They are active in more than one industry, the telephone industry, but also the computer industry, and they are not controlled only by one owner. Okay, there are different shareholders that owns the company. Okay, which implies also that the organization of the company has changed a lot over time. And in particular, on this aspect, we tend to distinguish between two main types of organization of large companies. Until a certain period, the main type of corporations, which are these companies that are owned by several people and are active in many industries, they were mainly organized along what is called a U-form corporation, meaning there was mainly a separation of different administrative functions. So you had the financial departments, the personnel departments, the purchasing department, engineering departments, and sales departments. So the company was structured along different functions, and then there was the finance department that was taking care of the branch of the company producing mobile phone, as well as of the branch of the company producing computer. The personnel department was taking care of hiring people involved in the branch that was selling mobile phone, as well as for the branch that was selling computers. The purchasing department was buying inputs both for the branch of the company that was producing cell phone, as well as the branch that was producing computer, as well, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the corporation was organized around functions. After a certain period, in particular when the activity of the corporation started to be very complex, because companies were not involved only in 2 sectors, but were involved in 10 different sectors. Nowadays, we have some company that is actually producing from, I don't know, mobile phone to financial sectors to chemical products, all produced by the same huge corporation. So when companies started to be that complex, the organization, the way in which this company started to be organized, changed from a U form to a M form, in which companies are organized in divisions, each dealing with a single product. So you start to have the divisions dealing with mobile phone, and that divisions will have his own administrative function, personal function, purchasing function. The divisions producing computers, and that division will have its own financial department, personal department, purchasing department, and the divisions dealing with financial services or chemical products with his own financial department, personal departments, and purchasing department. Okay, so basically, just to give you a picture, the idea is that in M form, so M form differs from the U form in 3 main aspects. M form, it is centered on products rather than functions. It focuses on the establishment of a central office, which is the headquarters that is coordinating all the different divisions. And thirdly, which is also very important, it relies on information, so the exchange of information across different divisions for its decision about the centralization or decentralization of the activities. Okay, so to give you also an actual picture, we can basically draw an M form or a U form in the following way. So the U form is just like this. Okay, so you have the board of director, which is basically the head of the company. You have different functions: the finance department, production, accounting, marketing, human resources. Each of them is dealing with different activities that can be associated with different lines of products. Okay, so the production department can deal both with one line of product or another line of product. The marketing is dealing with the sales of product A and product B, as well as with the communication of product A and product B. It is clear that this is very useful as an organization when you have to deal with few lines of products, and you can have somehow some sort of like advantage of sharing information related to marketing or production across different lines of product, but it becomes very difficult to organize a company using a U form when you have to deal with 10 different lines of products. That is the reason why the company started to be organized not anymore in terms of function, but in terms of divisions. And this gave birth to the so-called M-form organization, where you still have the board of directors, you have at least some departments that tends to be that tend to operate across different lines of products, and these are usually those related to research and development, those related to legal affairs, and those related to planning and control, and as well as the headquarter staff or head of director staff. And why, at least because why these are shared across different lines of production? Because they are the more strategic activities. Think about research and development, for instance. If you come up with a new innovation for one division, that, however, can be exploited also by other divisions, is very useful to have an organization in which this possibility is exploited, okay, in a reasonable period of time. If you organize your company putting the R&D in a separated cell, which is located in different divisions, this sort of like positive spillover in terms of information diffusion and knowledge diffusion within the company would be missed, or at least would take more time to take place, because you have R&D people that don't talk to each other. Okay, rather than if you sort of like centralize R&D, you can much more easily exploit the positive knowledge externalities. Given these main functions that are centralized, then you split up your company in different divisions, and for each divisions you put a production, a marketing, a finance, and possibly also an R&D sub-department that, however, is reporting directly to the centralized R&D department. Okay, so these are two different ways of organizing the company. The key point that I want to that you need to take home is that the movement first from a Marshallian to a U form, and then from a U form to an M form, made it much easier for companies to become multinational companies. Why? Well, because organizing my company as an M form make it possible for me, for instance, if I think this is a strategic investment, to expand my business across different lines of production and acquire control of different lines of production, even if these lines of production are located in different countries. So if we go back to my original example and we study the Italian company producing shoes, and this company decides that it is strategic for them to acquire control of a lines of product that can be, for instance, apparel, because then I can sell both clothes and shoes, is a different lines of product. This lines of product is in France. Well, I can easily do this. I mean, I can easily, it's complex, but I can do this, and by transforming the organization of my company from a Marshallian or a U form to an M form, makes it possible for me not only to do these investments, but also, once I made investments, to manage my company in an easier way compared to the case in which I didn't transform the organization of my company into an M form. Okay, so the emergence of M form organization is a kind of organizational innovations that made it simpler for companies to organize their production activities across different countries, which implies it makes it easier for companies to become multinational companies.